開會嘅時間到啦。
Members, good morning. We've got a quorum already, so may I now call the meeting to order. Please invite the administration in.
上一次咧喺會議上咧，我哋委員咧已經
At the last meeting, members had a discussion on a number of papers. Right, perhaps I'll wait till the officials have been seated.
官員代表出。
So, I will not introduce the officials to members again. I believe you've got the attendance list before you. At the last meeting, we had a discussion on a number of papers. The administration's response in relation to members' comments made in July, and that's paper CB222 bracket 01. And then members also responded to members' views on the policies. This is CB222 bracket 02. At the last meeting, members made a number of suggestions and raised a number of concerns. And this is paper CB2191 bracket 01. The administration has been asked to consider the suggestions and to provide a written reply. The administration has already given us its reply, and that's contained in paper CB2191 bracket 02. I know that members may want to ask questions on the paper, but I think I'll first invite Mr. Jack Chan, Deputy Director of Home Affairs, to take us through the paper, and then I'll invite questions from members. Mr. Chan, please. Thank you, Chairman. Good morning, members. At a meeting held on the 23rd of July, members asked the administration to provide supplementary information to the Council. And I would now like to highlight a few salient points in the paper. First of all, buildings managed by OCs. At the moment, there are around 8,500 buildings which are managed by OCs. And about 69% of them are single tenement buildings, and the remaining 31% involve more than one block of building. And there are about 94% of such single tenement buildings with less than 100 units. And I mean, this is a territory-wide figure, and the corresponding percentage is 72% for buildings managed by OCs involving more than one blocks. Many of them are in the NT, comprising a few blocks of three-story village-type houses. Examples include Campsite Terrace in Tai Po and Star Terrace in Sai Kung. Each block of the village-type house is counted as one building. Second, views received during the public consultation exercise. During the public consultation period, we met OCs and other types of owners organizations managing their own properties, and they all strongly objected to the requirement to obtain any form of license. They said that members of the management committees merely serve on a pro bono basis, and so it will be unfair to subject them to personal legal liabilities under the licensing regime. And what is more, nearly all the MC members are elderly and will not be able to take training courses to meet the licensing requirements. Thirdly, buildings under self-management are usually old single tenement buildings with a small number of flats, which require only some basic building management knowledge. Owners of these buildings do not engage PMCs for cost consideration, and they can't afford to employ a licensed PMC. And many of the owners are elderly citizens, and an increase in management fees will be a heavy financial burden to them. Last time, some members said that we should impose a cap on the number of flats, and if the number of flats exceeds a certain number, then a licensed PMC will be required. But then the purpose of the bill is not to regulate the behavior of OCs or owners. Concerning the operation of OCs, this is regulated under the BMO, and the legislative intent is to regulate commercial behavior in relation to building management. And if we require self-managed buildings to obtain licenses, then owners may be reluctant to take up the post in the MC as they don't wish to be subject to personal legal liabilities, and as a result the operation of these management committees will be paralyzed. And also, in many of these self-managed buildings, owners pay a low level of management fees. But if they are brought under the regulatory regime, they will be forced to hire PMCs at much higher prices. Now, let's look at a case in Yau Chim Mall. For two single tenement buildings with the same number of units and facility, the monthly management fee per household for hiring a PMC to provide property management services is 5 times more expensive than self-management by the OC. And so, if these owners are unwilling to pay the extra cost, the buildings may become the 3 new buildings without any building management at all. Members last time also expressed concerns for the transitional arrangements for PMPs. There will be a 3-year transitional period, and experienced practitioners will be able to get interim licenses. And during this interim period, they will only need to attend certain courses and CPD courses, and they will be granted licenses. We've never mentioned exams.
Alternatively, if they don't want to attend CPD courses, the authority may consider accepting PMPs to attend interview or to submit dissertations or reports in lieu of attending CPD courses. This is similar to the practice of relevant professional bodies. Number 5, single-tier licensing regime for PMCs. PMCs, 60% of them are small to medium-sized, and they have expressed grave worries about a multi-tier licensing regime at the company level because there may be a strong labeling effect, and the small to medium-sized PMCs may be at a disadvantage because the public may tend to think that larger PMCs may be able to provide better quality services. After repeated consideration, we proposed that there should be a single-tier licensing regime for PMCs, supported by the availability of transparent information. We think that would be the best option, as it strikes a balance between providing a level playing field to PMCs of different sizes and facilitating consumer choices. At the last HAP meeting, members supported that option. Last, assistance to owners of 3 new buildings. The details are in the paper and I will not repeat them. Thank you. Now the floor is open for questions. 3 members would like to ask questions. First, Mr. Chan Kin Po. How many minutes? 5? Okay, 5 minutes to start with. I'd like to refer to point number 2 of the paper. As requested, you gave us the numbers. 6% of the buildings have over 101 units. I'd like you to also give me the proportion or ratio for 200 units, 300 units, 400 units, 500 units, and above 500 units. I hope you will give us more data so that we can analyze the situation. From the information you gave us, if you look at single tenement buildings, we would already have dealt with a lot of the buildings. But if we draw the line by the number of units, we want to know how many people will be affected and where we should draw the line. I hope you will give us more information before I comment again on the issue. Overall speaking, I'm disappointed with your response because you are talking about the effect on single tenement buildings. But I already said if you draw the line at 200 units or 300 units, then we have already dealt with them. And what is more important is that with estates with more than 1 block, we feel that they need a PMC. After having this bill, even those large estates employing a PMC now may be able to make use of the loophole in the law, so they do not go for licensed PMCs but cheaper enterprises. They may ask their friends to set up PMCs because you're creating this loophole. You don't only affect these 8,500 buildings. I understand that there are over 10,000 buildings using PMCs, but they will make use of the loophole to lower costs and expenses. They will opt not to use a PMC. This is a problem that will arise, and you cannot deny it. If multi-block estates need a PMC, we should not negate that necessity. I hope you will give more thoughts to this very important issue. And also, we are not just talking about OCs, but OCs or owners' organizations of different forms. There will be exemption for them, is that right? Even if it is an owners' committee, you will exempt them. Well, if that's the case, now many OCs are employing at PMCs, but I'm sure they will go for that loophole and not employ the PMCs anymore. Or they may go for unlicensed PMCs. There is this risk. Of course, the BMO is fraught with loopholes. That is a known fact in the entire territory. I'm happy you are going to do something to plug the loopholes, but I'm sure your proposals are still problematic. There is a member who is a member of that review committee, but he or she is not in the room now. Anyway, the BMO itself is fraught with problems and loopholes, but let us come back to this bill, and I believe you have to do many things to improve it. I hope you give me the information first before I speak further. Mr. Chan, thank you for those questions. In fact, I have these data. I can give it to you now. Out of the 8,500 buildings which are managed by OCs or other forms of owners organizations, there are 282 with 100 to 200 units, 70 with 200 to 300, 18 for 300 to 400 units, and 15 for 400 to 500 units. So there are not too many. And as I said, 94% of these single tenement buildings have fewer than 100 units. Mr. Chan is worried. And what about above 500? 9. In fact, Mr. Chairman, we have detailed information of each and every one of these buildings. We are watching them closely. We have all the information we need about these buildings. We have 40,000 private buildings in Hong Kong and 25,000 already have PMCs. Mr. Chan was worried that when the bill is passed, OCs may opt for not using PMCs. But you need not worry, because even without this licensing bill, I have done the survey, and in the past 10 years, there have been many buildings built in Hong Kong. There was only one that is self-managed by an OC. The rest of these new buildings have engaged PMCs. So, in fact, the buildings which are older have also used PMCs, and there is hardly more than one building which is new and which has opted for not using PMCs. Next member, Wong Kwok Heng. Thank you, Chairman. I'd like to refer to a paper, HDR something, and I'd like to ask about the composition of the authority. In the paper, the administration said that they would be appointed and they will be selected from 3 categories. 1, people from the PM industry. 2, people experienced in consumer services. And 3, other people who are found to be suited for appointment by the CE. In the last year, and on different occasions, I have said repeatedly that when you form the authority, I hope you will consider having employee representatives. But I haven't seen you respond to this point so far. So I hope you will give serious consideration to this matter. The composition of the authority should include people from different quarters who are stakeholders. But I want to point out that the employee sector is also important. If the composition of the future authority is inclined towards the business sector and the PMCs without any employee representatives, I think that will represent a very big shortcoming for the authority. And you will not have anyone from the front line as a representative. I therefore hope that you will seriously consider this point. There will be 18 members on the authority, and you must include the voice of employees. Can you please answer that question? Mr. Wong, when we do clause-by-clause examination of the bill, we can take another look at the issue. But never mind. Deputy Director, can you respond? Well, I fully agree with Mr. Wong Kwok Heng. In the future, the authority will be broadly representative. There will be people from the industry, professional bodies, the people from society, and also people from the professions. And in fact, employees will be included, and they are individuals who are engaged in property management services. There will be company representatives and employee representatives. Even in the consultative committee now, there are 2 employee representatives, one of whom has a higher academic qualification and also experience. The other one doesn't have as high academic qualification, but who has also got management experience. So there will be such representatives. Mr. Wong Kwok Heng, I thank you for this very positive reply. I hope this will be minuted. I hope this will be minuted verbatim. I think that response is important. I believe the employees welcome that response. Number 2, just now Mr. Jack Chan said in his introduction that when the bill is passed and enacted, there will be a transitional period, and frontliners will have to attend CPD courses before they will be licensed. But many of these frontliners are working 12-hour shifts. To ask them to attend courses after a 12-hour shift may be very difficult for them. Mr. Chan, how do you expect these 12-hour shift workers to undertake courses? Can PMC provide release time for attending such courses? This is very good proposal, and I will follow up on it. Sorry, I haven't left time for you, but can you give us a concrete reply? Actually, at the time of the advisory committee, we have already accepted the views of the professional bodies and university academics. We are very concerned about future training, and we are confident that there will be enough CPD courses, and we are aware of the working time of the employees. Maybe the courses would best be provided on Saturdays and Sundays. Well, but can you give us concrete information later? Well, yes, I understand that the industry is also concerned. They want to know the timing of the courses and the fees and charges. They hope that it will not be outside their affordability. Deputy Director, these courses may be provided by training institutes. Maybe the administration can thresh out the details as soon as possible so the PMPs can be licensed. I think that is the concern of Mr. Wong Kwok Heng. Maybe you can do something more concrete for the benefit of these frontliners.
Yes, the employees are worried, Chairman. They are worried about the future licensing requirements, and they are worried that they may lose their jobs. Okay, so can the administration provide us with more information in this regard? Mr. Kwok Him. Yes, thank you, Chairman. I want to say that I welcome the administration's reply to the points made by members on the 15th of October. I would now like to follow up on a point that has been raised by Mr. Chen Kin-po. Now, the purpose of the bill is to enhance the quality of our building management services. And in order to have good building management services, we need to have good PMCs. And I understand that there are proposals concerning training and a transitional period. But then, as you've pointed out, there are many so-called self-managed buildings. So I think buildings under self-management should not be covered by the proposed regime. I think these buildings should not be brought under the proposed regime. But then I think Mr. Chan has made a very valid point, and that is if the number of units, say, exceeds 100, then a lot of problems may arise. If there are professionals sitting on the OC, that would be better. Otherwise, there will be difficulties, and I don't think you should exclude such buildings with a large number of flats purely because you think the owners do not want to pay the extra cost. So if the number of flats exceeds a certain number, then is it that we should make it mandatory for them to hire PMCs, or else a loophole will arise? Now, there are 9 such buildings with over 500 units. I don't know whether these are single tenement buildings or not. My experience tells me that it will be difficult for such a building to be managed by the OC or an owners organization. I think such buildings should be brought under the regime. I think if such buildings are under self-management, then you really can't guarantee the quality of the management services. Mr. Chan, thank you. The legislative intent, Chairman, is to regulate property management entities. Our purpose is not to regulate the operation of OCs or the acts of OCs. Members are concerned about the situation in buildings under self-management. Now, we have detailed information about these 8,000 odd buildings. And we understand that a number of complaints relating to these buildings is not particularly high. Please do not think that this is a loophole. In the past, years, hundreds of new buildings were completed, and in fact, of the hundreds of buildings, only one of them has opted for self-management. So most of the buildings under self-management are the older buildings, and so we have decided to adopt a three-pronged approach. We will try to improve upon CAP 344. We'll try to provide support services and assistance for these buildings under self-management, although we'll encourage them to hire PMCs, but we will not want to make this requirement mandatory. And of course, we are also seeking to try to enhance our support for these. So can you provide us with more information about the buildings with more than 100 units? Mr. Chan, concerning the idea of a loophole. At the moment, you can't say it's a loophole. I think you can call it a loophole only after the licensing regime has come into being. If this bill is passed, then many owners may decide to bring their buildings under self-management because they do not want to pay the extra cost. And I think this is the main concern of members here. Mr. Wu Chi-wai, thank you, Chairman. 2 parts. I remember at the public hearings, we said that a lot of the management details or building management details would be addressed in the subsidiary legislation. And I can remember the administration telling us that it would tell us the overall framework in the subsidiary legislation and would also give us some details, though not all the details. And so I want to know whether the administration is going to provide us with the draft subsidiary legislation in the near future. And then second, this bill is about regulating property management services. Now, of course, we need to respect the wishes of the owners. We need to take into account the unique situations in the buildings. And so I think it's important that in the proposed amendments to Cap 344, you have to incorporate certain elements in this bill because Cap 344 regulates OCs. In other words, for buildings under self-management, the OCs enjoy or are involved in certain interests. And so are they still managing the buildings in an unremunerated fashion? So can we simply rely on the belief that property owners will definitely do their best to manage the buildings that they are living in? We attach great importance to building management. In this bill, we're seeking to regulate PMCs, and I think we also need some corresponding amendments to Cap 344, and so that we can step up the regulation of OCs, and so that we can deal with loopholes arising from the management of buildings by OCs themselves. And then Director, can I ask you also this question, and that is, how are you going to step up your assistance and support for building owners with the enactment of this piece of legislation? Thank you. Mr. Chan. Thank you, Chairman, and I thank Mr. Wu for his 3 questions. First of all, on subsidiary legislation, as I stated at the last meeting, during the public consultation stage, we listened to views on the subsidiary legislation. But then as the bill is now studying the bill, we don't want to distract members by also providing our ideas and some concrete proposals on the subsidiary legislation. But these or such information will be available to members in the future. And then second, the second question, Mr. Wu is correct. We are now reviewing Cap 344, and the review covers a very wide scope, including, among other things, how we can encourage owners to play a more active part in managing their buildings. In other words, after the OCs have been set up, do OCs want to exercise self-management of the buildings? When we review Cap 344, we will be proposing ways to try to encourage owners to take a more active part or role in the process. Is it that if OCs opt for self-management, that can be done only with a resolution passed by the building? Yes, this is a mandatory procedure, but then as I have said just now, in the past decade, hundreds of new buildings were completed, and many OCs were set up, and only one OC opted for self-management. And then concerning strengthening support and assistance to OCs, we understand that this is one of members' concerns. For buildings, especially the 9 single tenement buildings with over 500 flats, we will try to provide tailor-made services for the OCs and for the owners. We'll liaise with the owners. We'll step up publicity on good property management. Will tell the owners in detail the pros and cons of hiring a PMC, and we will in all 18 districts in the territory. Send our professional teams to give more support to the OCs. Will pay particular attention to buildings under self-management, which consist of more units. All right, anyone else for the first round? 3 members would like to ask questions in the second round. Mr. Chan Kin Po, 5 minutes including replies? Yes. Yes, Chairman. So the administration in fact has got the figures, but then they have been provided to us only upon request. This is not desirable. Government officials should understand that society wants open and in-depth discussions. So I hope that you'll be more open-minded. In my functional I'm a functional constituency member, but still I am very aware of these problems existing at the district level. So I think you should understand the seriousness of the problem, and you shouldn't just be concerned about firefighting. In fact, you know how many buildings contain 200 to 300 flats, 300 to 400 flats, but then the figures were only provided upon my request, and so that's really not satisfactory. That's the first point. And then second, the bill seeks to enhance the quality of services provided by PMCs and to encourage buildings and owners to hire PMCs. You have told us or you've given us figures about what has happened, but then I think you should look ahead. Now at the moment, I don't know why OCs have opted self-management, but then with the passage of the bill, there will be an incentive to opt for self-management because it will be cheaper to opt for self-management.
And you may actually be encouraging people not to engage PMCs. Just now, Mr. Wu Chi-wai asked you whether you would make a consequential amendment to the BMO and to include this point. You said many things, but then the BMO is fraught with loopholes. Now you propose a consultation, but there will be no criminal liability. I will be making that point in the consultation exercise, but still now you cannot tell us about any criminal liability. Even if people flout the guidelines, there are over 1,000 complaints under the BMO every year. Why? It is because there is no criminal liability. Therefore, if we wait for the BMO to be amended, that will take a few years. But this bill is already with the Bills Committee. I hope you will give serious consideration to this point. I'm not pinpointing you, but we know that there is such a big problem. I have always talked to your colleagues in the district offices, and everybody agreed that you should go for the number of units in order to provide some control. You are at the HAD, and I can say frankly to you that you are unaware of the problems on the districts, and sometimes people from the districts report to you, but then you only respond with a deaf ear. There are many complaints from the residents, and the district officers do not have enough people to tackle all the problems, but maybe because of different considerations, you are not tackling the problem. You can tell us the figures, but then with the bill, there will be a lot of problems created. Or else I'm going to move CSAs. I hope you will do it, or else I may have to move CSAs. Mr. Chen, thank you for that view. We'll consider it. However, the spirit of the law is to enhance the operation of these entities, but we are not here to regulate the behavior and operation of OCs. That should be regulated under CAP 344. And CAP 344 is being reviewed. I hope members of the public will speak up when we conduct the consultation exercise. Mr. Chen Kimpo, I'll wait till the third round. Well, I like to say that from a macro point of view, the administration should address members' concerns. You talked about the self-managed buildings, and they are those that precisely need professional help. You say there are many elderly people who may not have work and who may have resource problems. Since you are helping the 3 new buildings, and you can consider helping these buildings also from that angle. You tell us not to worry about new buildings because there has been just one over the last 10 years that is engaging in self-management. So it goes to show that people are going in that direction, but you have to tackle certain old problems. We want self-managed buildings to engage professional building. And since we are going to license the PMCs, these people are worried about management fee levels. But the thing is, these are old buildings. Which are the buildings that require good management, or else how can they improve the living environment? From a macro point of view, whether you do it under BMO or this bill, I think you should try to help those people who need your help. In the first round, we have Christopher Chung. Mr. Chung first, 5 minutes. Thank you, Chairman. The trade must abide by a guideline or a code of practice on professional conduct, or else they will not be able to tackle all the different things that can arise in the course of managing a building. If the industry will not come together and write their own guideline, it will be very difficult for you to regulate them. Say, if someone has done something wrong, would that constitute professional conduct breaching? Say, for example, in Taiwan, there is this building where an order for repair has been received from the buildings department. They have asked the PMC to do something, but the PMC is putting aside the issue and it has delayed its work. It has not even called a meeting until now. They say the secretary is not here, the chairman has no time, but as a PMC, it should convene a meeting and discuss the order for repair. So in fact, the PMCs have to tackle a whole range of work, and maybe you should ask the trade itself to write something like a treaty so everybody will comply with it, or else, as some members have said, you may have the law but people don't comply with it, people don't know how to comply with it, and so you have to consider this point. Mr. Chen, the services and how they can be kept at a high level. Well, I absolutely agree. This is precisely the point of this bill. We hope that under the licensing system, there will be codes of practice to be complied with by the PMCs and also frontline PMPs, or else they may be subject to regulatory control, the most serious form of which is revocation of license. Second round, Mr. Yêu Kwok Him. Just now a member has made this point. Well, I can understand the reply from the administration. CAP 344 may be a more suitable ordinance to tackle this, but this time around, under this bill, it is not our intention to force OCs to give up self-management. There are many buildings in Hong Kong which are self-managed. I believe some of them are doing it well. But we must show care and concern towards these buildings. If it is not a single tenement, and if the management is done in a professional way, and since we are not regulating the PMCs now, I believe we should look at this batch of buildings carefully. I definitely don't want to include self-managed buildings into the licensing regime. But if there are multi-block estates, I wonder how they can do it on their own. I have been working on a district level, and I know that this is not done well. And I agree that with the 9 buildings with more than 500 units, are they really single tenement, or are they actually a group of buildings? I think we should do more analysis. I think the department should consider the issue from this direction, and not just the enhancement of quality service of PMCs. I hope you will reconsider this point. And I'm also concerned about 3-nil buildings. You have already given a few points by way of existing measures. You say they are effective. But going forward, how can we give them more assistance? Should we just talk about the CCF and give them some subsidies under the CCF? And also the advisory service, can that be sustained? The original intent is to go for professional management, but I hope the law will also help these buildings more. Mr. Chan, first of all, I'd like to thank Mr. Ip for his support that OC self-managed buildings should be exempted under the bill. But I have also heard the concern of the member. Therefore, we are going to consider a new scheme to show care and concern to self-managed buildings, especially those with a big number of units. We are going to formulate a more concrete plan to strengthen liaison, home visits, and to give them more information. And for 3-nil buildings, we have given a detailed reply in the paper. We will not end the scheme. After the first stage, the BMPASS has been found to be very effective, and we have started a stage 2 in April this year. It is very effective, and it will go on for 2 years, and we expect to carry on such a scheme. And we have seen that about 100 to 200 buildings have changed from 3-nil buildings into an OC managed building. And also, some of them have been able to apply for loans from the administration or the URA for maintaining buildings. They are the main targets of our work. Mr. Wu Chi-wai? Thank you, Chairman. We seem to be focusing on the point that PMC equals good service. Now, if the management work will entail legal liability, then I think that will lead to an enhancement of quality. The 3-nil buildings are here for a reason. There are 8,500 such buildings, but 84% of them have less than 50 units. They are old tenement buildings. If they can set up OCs, then they are not in the worst situation, because at least you can have someone you can talk to about managing the building. I don't want the law to also cover our historical issues unless you are going to do an overhaul so we can have street management, so we can have an economy of scale. But my understanding is that the DMCs, the landlords, the title or ownership may stand in the way. If you want to develop in this direction, this may be the next step. And maybe you need to do street management as a whole. This happens in old districts quite often. In other words, the entire street is full of old tenement buildings. But my question for you is, Mr. Chan, you say self-management is not something within Cap 344. The building owners may have to act according to procurement standards in order to procure cleaning services. What about the building or building estates deciding on self-management or otherwise? I think the estates do not have a mechanism to make that decision. My question for you is, after we pass the bill, now on the premise that we respect the ability to make decisions by themselves, still, can we ask the owners' corporations to pass a resolution formally on self-management? Because we are worried about some negative consequences resulting from this bill. Well, maybe there are owners who have very good intentions and who want to do good management of their buildings. But if there is no latitude in the bill for owners to make that decision, it will be unfair to other small owners. So we need to strike a balance.
And so concerning buildings opting for self-management, that should form the subject of an important resolution. So you can know under the DMC, of course, there is a manager, or rather there should be a manager, and if the owners opt for self-management, then a resolution of the owners is required. Mr. Chair, yes, Mr. Wu's understanding is correct. When a building is completed, there is a DMC, and then there is a manager stipulated in the DMC. And in the review of Cap 344, we will pay particular attention to the appointment of the DMC manager. If a building or building owners want to do away with the manager, certain procedures have to be gone through. And we're also proposing certain procedures to be gone through if buildings opt for self-management. So we will follow up under or in the context of the review of Cap 344. I want to follow up. I hope that you will not mention the doing away with the DMC manager and the opting of buildings for self-management in the same breath. I understand that if a DMC manager is to be done away with, there is a very high threshold required. So I hope that it's going to be the content of another resolution to be passed as an important resolution at an owners' plenary meeting. Right, the third round, Mr. Chan Kin Paul. I think it's important that we can have in-depth discussions about the principles. I'll allow Mr. Chan 5 minutes. Chairman, I will be brief. Mr. Chan said that the BMO would be amended. But then it will be very difficult for you to inject the spirit or the essence of this bill before us into CAP 344. There are lots of things in CAP 344 which need to be improved on and revised. And there are other more urgent things under CAP 344 that you have to deal with. I think the simple way out is to draw a line here in this bill. More than concerning buildings with over 500 flats under self-management, number is 9, and so I want to have a further breakdown. How many buildings exceeding 600 flats, 700 flats, 800 flats, and 900 flats, or even 1,000 flats? I think such information will help me make a decision, and so I want to know the building with the largest number of units which are under self-management, and then I'll draw a line above that, and then for the those buildings below that line, there we can have a grandfathering arrangement, because I'm worried that with the passage of the bill there will be many more buildings opting for self-management. I want to say that reviewing and amending CAP 344 is a very complex and sophisticated exercise, and I think the simple way out is to draw a line in this bill. Mr. Chan, please. Yes, thank you. I thank Mr. Chan for his questions. We can provide all the figures to members through the Secretariat. We have been doing this and we'll continue to do it. Do you have the figures with you here? I'll have to go back and check, Chairman. Concerning drawing a line in this bill, I think it's not as simple as that. It's really I think it's a matter of principle. The purpose of this bill is to regulate business entities or practitioners in property management. This bill doesn't seek to regulate the acts or behavior of OCs or owners. The latter should be regulated by CAP 344. And if some buildings under self-management are brought under the ambit of this bill, then we are in fact seeking to regulate the acts of OCs as to how they want to manage their own buildings, and that would be against the spirit of this bill, and that would be against the principle of a free economy. We should respect the OC's choices or the owner's choices, and we should not require them either to be licensed or to hire PMCs. Yes, Chairman, I wish to respond. So how come you can't allow PMCs to operate freely without regulation? Because according to what you say, imposing some form of regulation will go against the principle of free economy. You know, banks are subject to rigorous regulation, and so are insurance companies. So please don't talk about the principle of free economy. There, at the moment, there are many defects, many problems. And I'm sure if you do not draw a line here in this bill, you'll see lots of problems within the next decade. You are telling us that you can't draw the line. I don't think this is a satisfactory answer. Concerning the legislative intent, I hope that we can have a chance to discuss that in detail. I think if there is a will, there is a way. I'm just trying to tell you this very real problem, and that is that a loophole will arise, many problems will arise, and so you can't simply say that you don't want to violate the principle of free economy. Mr. Wu, in fact, we have been talking about these loopholes in the Spills Committee. The deputy directors of the view that OCs should be regulated under Cap 344 and not this bill. Yes, I can accept that as a broad principle, but then we're not targeting tenement buildings with only 2 flats on each floor. I'm just concerned that if there should need to be checks and balances. In other words, if the owners opt for self-management, then the resolution will have to be passed at the owners plenary committee. I hope that this suggestion can partly address Mr. Chan's concern. Because with the passage of this bill, some owners or some buildings may opt for, or they may have the incentive to opt for self-management because they don't want to pay the extra management fees. And so I think such a decision should be the subject of an important resolution to be adopted by the plenary meeting of the owners. I think this is a good suggestion, Chairman. And we'll try to enhance such safeguards in Cap 344. And then I want to say that for buildings under self-management, it is not that we will just let them do what they like. We will provide them with support services and assistance. But Chairman, for buildings which opt for self-management, I think the resolution has to be passed by by the plenary owners meeting. I think that this is some sort of check and balance. That's what I mean. Yes, I hope that the department can consider this suggestion. Members have expressed concerns about this issue. I don't know whether members have any further questions on the policies. 5 minutes, Mr. Ip Kok Him. Yes, Chairman, concerning Mr. Wu Chi-wai's point. My understanding is that important decisions like opting for self-management have to be passed by the plenary meeting of the owners. This is what my experience has told me. And if a building wants to switch from self-management to management by a PMC again, there is a need for such a decision to be adopted by the plenary meeting of the owners. Because this is a major change in the mode of management, is it not? And then as to whether this piece of or this bill will or the passage of this bill will create a loophole. Now, my viewpoint is this: for newly completed buildings, there are managers provided for in the DMCs because we no longer have buildings with only a few flats or a few floors. almost all new buildings are high-rise buildings. We want to enhance the quality of our services provided by PMCs. So we hope to of course or we are of course worried that OCs may become self-management companies. So this is the loophole referred to by members. But then at the same time, we don't think that we should be regulating the acts of OCs under this bill. But then the problem is that there are high-rise buildings of many flats, and can they be effectively managed by the self-management approach? And so I think the director should really consider whether this is a loophole that may arise. Mr. Chen, we seek to regulate PMCs providing management services, and so for OCs exercising self-management, they are not providing property management services for others. But of course, we won't allow anyone to circumvent the regulatory regime. But then these for a building, say, or buildings with over 500 flats that are under self-management, we may be talking about more than one block. I'm not sure whether there are buildings or a single tenement building with over 500 flats. I believe with 500 flats there may be different phases, but then it will be very difficult for these buildings to be under self-management. I think the service of PMCs is required. But what if the owners organize or themselves into a management company? So I think there may be possible problems.
Mr. Chen, well, we can formulate some kind of special assistance or support to buildings with a large number of units and which are self-managed. We know there is just a handful, but we can formulate some kind of dedicated assistance for them. Mr. Wu Chi-wai, fourth round. Or Ms. Sit-ho? Ms. Sit-ho first. First round, 5 minutes. Thank you, Chairman. I think it's easy for you to define providing services to others, but you do not define self-management. Owners can form an OC. What if the owner then rents out his premises to a tenant? Can a tenant be part of the OC? Because these people may not be professional, but they are providing services to others. I believe, therefore, you should also define self-management. I understand you want to allow some leeway for OCs to do self-management. I think that's a good thought. I have seen certain OCs which have the knowledge. They themselves may be professional property managers, so they do not need to engage a PMC, and they can group together and save a lot of money. We should not compel OCs and owners to spend a lot of money to engage PMCs, because once you have a PMC, you have to pay the remuneration of the manager. So we should not be forcing people to patronize certain companies. However, you have to plug this loophole. I think you need to take up this bill in parallel with the BMO. You have to draw a line somewhere to state which OCs should be allowed for self-management, because you are providing these exemptions, and then OCs may go back to the HAD when they do self-management, but nevertheless they are incapable. Mr. Chan, I understand, and I will do follow up. We will think about the interpretation part of the bill, and we are going to provide special service to self-managed buildings to make sure that they are capable of self-management. In fact, we provided many such courses and pamphlets and templates for the sake of these OCs. Well, but Chairman, we have heard even more criticism against the administration for creating OCs without helping them afterwards. We have done an overall of the BMO, and you say now you provide special assistance to them. I don't know how special it is. Just now, 10 o'clock, we heard a complaint case about an old building. The FSD asked them to do something with the water tank, and then the BD said it is an unauthorized building works. There are already problems waiting to be resolved. I think you really have to think through what self-management means, because with this bill, we really want to have good maintenance of buildings, so there will be safety, so owners' interests will be protected. We have seen news reports that owners have been milked by unprofessional companies, but you have to clarify this point. Any response? Any follow-up? I'll wait for the administration to define self-management and what loopholes can be plugged by providing this exemption, and who should be represented on the OCs in buildings with self-management. Can you allow somebody appointed by owners or even tenants on the OCs? I think they should come back quickly with a reply, probably before we go into clause-by-clause examination. Mr. Wu Chi-wai, fourth round, 4 minutes. Thank you. Just now, Mr. Ip said the law would be able to regulate whether OCs are going to engage PMCs. But let me clarify, because the BMO, as I know it, we rely on Section 20 of the BMO, and that is arrangements for procurement of services. You want to procure property management services, so you need to go through the owners' committee plenary. But that is not a case of deciding on self-management, so it's different. And I stand to be corrected also, Mr. Chan. Self-management means that if I'm the manager of the OC, I can engage Company A just for security services, and Company B cleaning services, and Company C lift maintenance, and Company D a licensed repair company just for sundry repair work. Now, this is what we mean by self-management of buildings. This is how management is done for the building or the estate. So, I was going along your line of thought. Now, if this is the decision made by the estate, then they will not need a PMC to do overall coordination of these services, so that it will not be covered under the bill. I am not saying that we should stand in the way of buildings making these decisions, but I believe there should be a resolution passed at the OC plenary. In other words, when the OC goes for this choice, it should be part and parcel of a collective resolution of the OC. Therefore, in the primary legislation, maybe we can have a clause, a section to govern this, not in the BMO, but in this bill. In other words, the bill will only seek to regulate PMCs. And then if buildings do not want to opt for PMCs, then at least the OCs should reach a collective and consolidated decision together for self-management. Mr. Chen, now from what I understand, I think Mr. Ip was correct. First, if it is a new building, there is a DMC and then a DMC manager. The DMC management is responsible for helping owners to manage the building, and the owners will have to decide on setting up an OC or dismiss the DMC manager at an owners committee. This is a procedure. In the law, you need so many shares of ownership before you can do it. And maybe in Cap 344, we can do something to allow owners to find it more convenient for terminating the DMC manager contract. We have received views saying that it's very difficult to dismiss the DMC manager, even if he does a rotten job. When owners have set up the OC, they can decide for self-management or engaging the PMC. Now that, of course, is done by a resolution of the owners committee. And thirdly, even if we don't know this has happened, you can imagine a case of first having a PMC and then opting for self-management. We haven't seen that in the last 10 years, but it may happen. And we have to think about how we can encourage more owners to take part in this very important task. This is one of the aims of reviewing Cap 344. Next, Mr. Frankie Yik, first round, 5 minutes. Thank you, Chairman. I'm sorry for being late. I don't know whether what I'm going to say has been covered. I'd like to go back to your response paper, para 11. Last time, we said that experienced PMPs with low level of formal qualification can be given a waiver. In para 11, you say that those who are experienced and who meet certain basic requirements. What do you mean by basic requirements? Do you have objective criteria for deciding basic requirements so people in the trade will be reassured, or else they would be worried about losing their job? And this time around, you are stating it more clearly. They say after having a provisional license, they can attend the CPD courses in the next 3 years before they are granted a formal license. Here you don't mention examination. I think that's a kind of improvement. And also the attendance rate. Do you require 100% or 90% or what? Mr. Chan. Thank you, Mr. Yik, for the questions. Basic requirements so that experienced PMPs can get a provisional license. These are really very basic in our mind. First of all, they are in the industry. They are now in the industry. They cannot say, I was working as a PMP 30 years ago. So you just go for experience? Well, yes, they are now in the industry. They are in service. What about the rank? Should you at least be a manager? Or at least in a relatively high rank? This was not discussed in detail during the consultation stage, but now we are only seeking to license the management people of PMCs. So basically, this person must be in the management of a company and they must be in service. So it will be very basic indeed. What about do you regard a supervisor as a management person? About who is in management, we are talking about somebody who is responsible for managing staff and who has a serious influence on the quality of management of the building. When we formulate the subsidiary legislation, we will list those in more detail. As for the attendance rate, Mr. Yip, you are correct. We are saying that if there is a certain attendance rate at the CPD courses, they will get the license without having to sit an examination. As for the attendance rate itself, it must be at a certain level, but it can be discussed. I don't think anyone can reach 100%. Any follow-up? No. Who else would like to ask questions? Mr. Chen Kin Paul, fourth round, 4 minutes. Thank you. I'd like to respond what the officials said. You say supporting the self-managed buildings. Well, you call it support. It sounds very nice, but in fact you want to regulate them. However, if there is no criminal liability in the laws, I don't think you can succeed in supporting those buildings. The same goes for the BMO. So if we all think that estates of a certain scale should have a PMC, you can set it at 2,000 units, or you can be more extreme. You can set it at 10,000 units. I'm sure nobody can manage such an estate on their own. I'm sure they need a PMC. So you should go back and think about it. I won't dwell on it now. I hope you will give us the figures next time, and then I will tell the clerk exactly my requirement to seek the data from you. Now I'd like to talk about stand-alone services. Say they have one company for landscaping, one to manage the swimming pool, one to do cleaning, the other one to do security. Does it mean then they can steer clear from this bill? Is that a loophole? When we thought about this bill, we thought that PMCs should provide a series of different services before they would need a license. During the consultation, we received a lot of views saying that the licensing system should be clear and exact and not be too disturbing. If there are companies which only provide standalone services like cleaning, then we are not going to require them to get a PMC license because it doesn't go into other industries or services.
If it is a security company providing a standalone service, then it will not need to obtain a property management license, but it will need to obtain a license for the provision of security service. So standalone services are not covered by this bill. Thank you. And will a PMC split its services into, say, 10 standalone services. So the PMC may set up 10 companies signing 10 different contracts with the building owners. Perhaps I can, after this meeting, ask property management companies whether this will become a loophole, because it's possible that a PMC may split its services into different standalone services. And I think you really need to consider how you're going to plug this possible loophole. Yes, Chairman, thank you. During the public consultation period, we met PMCs, the PMC associations and the practitioners. In fact, PMCs do not resent the idea of a licensing regime. In fact, they hope to be licensed because a license is a recognition of the quality of the service that it provides. And so they welcome the early coming into being of the regime. And then concerning splitting the property management service into several standalone services to circumvent the licensing system. We've heard from the industry that this is unlikely because it will be costly and very complicated to set up different companies in order to circumvent the need to obtain a license. Yes, thank you. This is the third time that we are discussing the policy issues behind this bill. And at the meeting held on the 15th of October, I got members some agreement that after the issues of principle had been cleared, we would proceed to clause-by-clause scrutiny. Yes, I understand that there are still some outstanding issues to be resolved, and they can be discussed again at the next meeting. And of course, members may also give further suggestions. So in order not to delay the progress of our work, may I suggest that we start clause-by-clause scrutiny of the bill. Last time there was a letter from the JSM, and a reply has been provided by the administration. CB282 bracket 2 is the letter from JSM dated the 14th of October 2014. The administration's response is in paper CB2191 bracket 03. And all these papers have already been issued to members. The letter is about clause 2, interpretation, and also the drafting of the bill. And so I think we can deal with these two papers when we come to the relevant clause. So let's now proceed to clause-by-clause scrutiny. And so please take us through the bill, and I understand that the legal advisor has also raised certain points concerning the drafting of the bill, and though replies have already been provided by the administration. So again, we'll refer to these documents when we come to the relevant clause. All right, so let's proceed in this manner. And let's start the clause-by-clause study. Yes, I want to invite our Assistant Director, Ms. Linda Leung, to tell members about the content of the different clauses. I will be answering members' questions on the policy aspects, and Mr. Michael Lam, the Senior Assistant Law Draftsman, will address the questions on legal aspects. Ms. Leung. Yes, Chairman. I think I'll start with the long title. The long title contains the 4 objectives of the bill to establish a property management services authority to provide for the licensing of business entities carrying on and individuals engaged in the business of providing property management services, to regulate and control the provision of property management services, and to provide for related matters. Thank you. Ms. Starry Lee. Thank you. Chairman, I understand that the bill provides for the establishment of a property management services authority, and this authority will have the power to issue licenses. So, for concerning the proposed authority, apart from playing a monitoring role, can it also play the promotion role? Yes, we have seen the setting up of a number of regulatory authorities, and these regulatory authorities regulate the respective industries, but then do they also try to promote the development of the respective industries? Yes, thank you, Chairman. Now, this authority will be responsible for licensing and monitoring, and another important function is to try to promote the services provided by the industry and to enhance the quality of services in industry. But then this bill is mainly about the regulatory aspect and the monitoring aspect, and that's why we haven't included this function in the long title. But in fact, you can refer to clause 4 and you will see that one of the functions of the authority is to promote the industry. Thank you. Chairman, then as the authority will also play a role of promotion, is it necessary to include this function in the long title? So what is the existing practice? Yes, Chairman. The long title contains the objective, and that is to establish a PMSA. And Part 7 of the bill states that the authority will regulate and control the provision of property management services, and will also maintain the enhance the status of the profession, and to promote the integrity, competence, and professionalism of the profession. It may not be appropriate to include all the functions of the authority in the long title. But then we have already said that the bill seeks to establish a PMSA. That's in fact the usual practice we adopt for long titles concerning the structure, functions, and the organizational structure of the authority. They are in Part 7. So can you tell me where I can see the functions of the authority in the bill? As Part 7, Clause 40. Page C2804, Chairman. Thank you. Yes, please continue. Chairman, Part 1, Preliminary. Two parts. First of all, short title and commencement. This ordinance may be cited as the Property Management Services Ordinance, and then this ordinance comes into operation on a day to be appointed by the SHA by notice published in the Gazette. All right? With regard to the licensing of PMCs, can you please clarify this for me? So it is not that all people providing property management services have to be licensed, right? All PMCs have to be licensed. And those in the management or responsible for the management of PMCs have to be licensed. But then what about licenses for practitioners? We're talking about the management only, Chairman. In Hong Kong, there are tens of thousands of people providing property management services. Many of them are frontline employees, and we're not seeking to require them to obtain licenses. So we are in fact targeting the management, and in fact we have Tier 1 and Tier 2 licenses for PMPs. Ms. Lee, so is it that all PMCs will be subject to regulation and licensing? As far as I can remember, some companies can be exempted, those providing standalone services, Chairman. Anything else? Anything else on this clause? No? And I think we can continue. Sorry, Chairman. Will the housing department be exempted? Clause 7 contains exceptions. For example, the HA and also a public officer acting in that capacity. All right, let's look at that when we come to it. All right, Ms. Leung, can you please continue? Clause 2, Chairman, interpretation. And I will highlight the terms that more have expressed concerns about. First of all, the definition of property. Property means a building as defined by Section 2 of the BMO. And under Section 2 of the BMO, there is a definition for property, and there are 3 elements. First of all, basement or underground car park with more than 2 structures, and there is no limit on the number of flats. And then the second element, that is to include the land on which the building is situated.
Number 3, the land, which belongs to the same owner as the land on which the building stands, and the owners will use that part of the land together. And also on the 3 elements on building under the BMO, in that first element it says that there will be no limit to the units, but then actually the unit is also defined under BMO, and that is any premises in the building according to the DMC, that there will be exclusive ownership for the owner in that premises. Members, please note that you can refer to some papers. That's paper 217, bracket 04. The definitions of building can be found in that paper. Ms. Sito, Chairman, I think there is a problem with the drafting again. If you can say so clearly that it is Section 2 of BMO, why don't you make use of the cut and paste function of the computer to assist us? We always say owners are elderly people and other people who may know nothing about the profession. They are going to be included under the bill. Why don't you just transport those elements to this bill? The lawyers will know that they have to do cross-referencing. They can look for definitions here and there. But since this bill will affect many owners, I hope your drafting can be more user-friendly, and please reproduce those definitions by the cut and paste function. It won't take up a lot of your time. Let me try to explain. We have thought about using that method. We did it and then we did not do it, and in the end we decided not to do it because we are not just talking about the definition on building, because there are many terms within that definition that are also defined under BMO. We have units, occupier, owner, and these terms are also defined under the BMO. And also under owner, we have many different terms that have to be defined also, including mortgagee or shares, etc. And so even an entire section, Section 39, is devoted to defining the word shares. So if we were to include the definition of all these terms and also Section 39, then we are going to add a lot to the definition of building, because it's by no means a short definition. If we want to make it user-friendly, we might even have to start another part of the bill in order just to explain the term property. Well, yes, we can do it. But we have thought about what can be achieved. Since the new Property Management Services Bill is closely linked to CAP 344, so we believe for those who are reading 344, it will not be difficult for them to understand the bill and its definition on property. Well, Chairman, professional BMCs, of course, are well versed with these laws, but we are talking about an average owner, an average citizen who have to comply with the law. This will be just an one-off effort. It should not be too difficult for you. It will even be more difficult for the average citizen who just wants to comply with the law. And we are talking about professional DOJ staff who can make it more convenient for the public to understand our laws. If you think it is so cumbersome, then how can we expect the average owner, especially the elderly who have a low education level, to understand the law and their responsibilities under the law? Even if we are going to repeat parts of the other ordinance, let us just do it. Mr. Chan, will it really make it convenient for the users? Chairman, let me try to answer the question like this. Our laws must be clear, specific, and accurate. Now, how can we make it easy for the public to use the laws? There will be templates, guidelines, and pamphlets that will be produced after the bill is passed. I would say that it will be more practical for the public to read those pamphlets and guidelines instead of reading the law, because the law can be understood only by people with professional knowledge. I would think that the average citizen should take reference from the pamphlets we are going to produce. But then, Chairman, when you go to court, you cannot rely on a pamphlet. Even if you are going to produce pamphlets, you can still make this bill extremely clear. And even if you make this bill very clear, you still have the responsibility to produce pamphlets for the sake of owners. I was talking about elderly owners and other people who have tertiary education will have a certain literary standard, but it doesn't mean they can understand laws. just now your colleague was referring to BMO 344 and he was referring to different parts. So I'm just asking, why don't you just do it when you draft a new bill? Any response? Chairman, I think it's a matter of decision. If you look at other terms under the interpretation part, some of them are cross-defined. So it's a matter of a decision that we have made. Well, exactly. If the DOJ is saying that people have to make reference to other laws, and if you ask an average owner to do what you professional people do at the DOJ, I mean, you have to make it easy for the public to refer to laws. They said already that they might have terms that would also require cross-referencing. But of course, very often they are asking you to cross-reference Cap 344. Well, Chairman, they said they have considered it, so it shows that the DOJ also thinks that this may be a problem. There will be people and residents who have different literary or academic standards. They may first of all refer to a pamphlet, but those who can read, those who have a higher education level, should be able to read the law instead of having to refer to PMCs or lawyers or professionals. For an initial understanding, they may refer to the pamphlet and then they would look at the law, and then if they still cannot resolve the problem, then they can go for a lawyer. But if you just say Cap 344 and then when they go to 344 they have to look for Section 39 and then other parts, this will be too difficult even for a university graduate. Now, since you have considered it, since you have spotted it as a problem, since you are drafting the bill afresh, you should seek to facilitate the public. I'm not arguing the policies with you. I'm just asking you to transport some wording from another ordinance. Now, I think the point is whether it will make it easier for people by copying from another ordinance. The DOJ said it thought about it. Now, this would represent, the bill as it stands would represent the product of their consideration. They are saying this is more appropriate. Chairman, just let me say one thing more. If the DOJ is unsure whether they can dig up everything to include, that is why they go for the safest way to do it for them, and that is just to make one single reference. And then you place the responsibility on the shoulders of people who are going to read this law. You have to put yourselves in the shoes of residents. What are they going to do? What do you expect them to do? Is it that you are afraid you may omit anything, or are there other reasons? Well, I understand this is the normal way of law drafting, or else laws would be very repetitive. Also, if we were to amend 344 later on, and the interpretation part there, we might also have to amend this bill. And the list goes on. It means if we amend one law, then all other laws that mention that law for reference will have to be amended. And it will mean so much bigger a workload, and it will convenience no one. Well, Chairman, I think they have heard you. No, so in the end you are talking about administrative convenience. But you are placing the very heavy responsibility of property management on the shoulders of residents. Now, this is going to affect many people, and I think all the more you have to allow the average person to understand the extent of their responsibility and the legal consequences. In fact, there are laws that will entail consequential amendments to other laws if they are amended, but it's so easy now when you use a computer. You can just cut and paste when you do consequential amendments. Okay, I think they have heard you just now. I did not put a limit on your time. Our meeting should end at 12:45, and I can see Ms. Starley indicating her intention to speak. Ms. Lee, after you have asked your question, our meeting will end for today. And we can continue at the next meeting. Ms. Dari Lee, Chairman, I think this is the feeling for the average citizen when they read laws. If you do not have a law degree, there is always cross-referencing, etc. But I do think that if we are going to do what Ms. Ho said, it may be a little difficult. However, I do subscribe to the fact that it is quite normal for people to find it difficult to read the laws. I hope you will go back and think about it so that your law drafting will be making things easier for the public as a whole. I know I have limited time. Just now, Chairman, you asked us to look at paper 1761 Annex 1 for the definition of building. As the paper said, we are seeking to regulate property, meaning buildings. Now, according to A, you need to have more than one story. Does it mean that if it is a single-story building, in other words, they are houses or standalone houses, they are not going to be regulated by the bill? Is that right? I'm just seeking some clarification. If it is a single-story structure, it is not included in the definition of building. Would there be a loophole where there will be houses, they belong to the same estate and they are managed by a PMC? Does it mean they will not be regulated by the bill? Have you thought about that scenario? Ms. Churk. Actually, very often houses have more than one story. It has to depend on whether they fit in with other elements of building. Say, for example, it may include flats. In standalone houses or in the estate there may not be a DMC, and therefore there will not be any designated number of flats. So they will not be regarded the same as multi-story buildings under BMO. In other words, you have thought about that, and it shouldn't happen where there is an estate with just one-story buildings. So that even if they have a PMC, they will not be included in the bill. Is that you have thought about this and you think this will not happen?
With regard to the definition of property or building rather in the BMO, it refers to multi-story buildings with DMC with owners having to jointly manage the common parts of the building. Due to time constraint, I'll continue. So you will so the term building applies to a building which contains any number of flats comprising 2 or more levels. But then there may be a holiday bungalow on a certain lot, and will that be covered as well? If there is no DMC and if it's a single structure, then it will not be covered by this definition. And then Fairview Park. What about Fairview Park? I mean, so the most important point is whether there is a DMC and whether there is public space. Right, members? I think time's up. The next meeting will be held on the 25th of November, a Tuesday at 10:45 in room 1. So I think the meeting can be adjourned now. Thank you.